By all, I mean the essential concepts that you need to know when you would like to start a career in cybersecurity or to study cybersecurity. As you have mentioned already, here is the content of my presentation. I will start by the basic notions, like what are the key elements that we need to protect in cybersecurity, the cybersecurity disciplines, threats, vulnerability, and risks, and the difference between those three concepts. Then cyber attack vectors and surface incidents and attacks, and also I'm going to show you the cyber security attack scenario and what are the main missions and the main cybersecurity measures that are needed in order to protect the information system of a company, the anticipation, prevention, detection, reaction, recovery and restoration, and also digital investigation. And I will end my presentation by the cybersecurity goals and objectives. And of course, I will set some techniques and technologies for each goal. In cybersecurity, we need, as I've mentioned before, we need to protect a set of objects, a set of elementary objects, and these elements are first data and information. So it's all about data and information. That's why we refer nowadays to information security and to data security as essential topics and fundamental aspects of cybersecurity. The main goal here is to ensure the protection of sensitive information in both digital and physical forms. It means that our main goal in information security and data security is to prevent the unauthorized access to data, unauthorized use of data, to prevent the unauthorized disclosure and modification, and even removal or destruction of data and information, regardless its form, as I said, either physical or digital. So this is the first element that we need to protect it in cybersecurity. Then data and information are handled and are created, are stored, used software application and services. That's why the second element in cybersecurity is software application and services. And we need to ensure here the security of software apps and services. That's why we refer to many aspects in relation with software apps and services, like, for example, the secure software engineering, secure coding, authentication, access control, authorization and accounting, separation of duties, and other several concepts. And the role of this concept is to secure the software and the services that are used to handle and to create and to store data. Now, software applications and services are hosted in operating system in machines. So that's why the third element that we need to protect are operating systems and hardware machines. And we need here to protect, in general, the hosting environment. It means that we need to protect the OS, the hardware machine, including end users' computers, servers, cloud machines, mobile devices, and even IoT devices, to ensure their security, integrity, and resilience against cyber threats. And we refer to, in this context, to computer security and cloud security. And now, in general, machines and operating and systems are interconnected via the network. That's why the fourth element in cybersecurity that we need to protect is networks. And of course, when we talk about networks, it means securing zones and securing the perimeter of this network. So the network is the fourth element that needs to be protected in cybersecurity. Here we refer to network security, and network security is the set of practices designed to prevent unauthorized access, designed also to monitor the network equipment and protect the machines against network attacks. So network attacks, for example, like the DOS attacks, denial of service attacks or distributed denial of service attacks. Network security includes filtering the incoming and the outgoing traffics according to generally to a strict filtering and security policy, and also by extending, we secure the network when we need to extend this network, for example, to connect to remote sites or to let the employees to work remotely. That's why we need to protect the remote access to this network. Then the physical security, because all what I have mentioned are installed and are hosted in data centers. That's why the physical aspect or security of the physical environment is also quite important. So physical security here is the protection of the IT physical environment from physical harmful action and accidental incident that could cause serious data loss and also could cause non-availability of system. The security of the IT environment includes the protection from flood, water leak, fire, the cut of the essential services like electricity, like cooling system, like also the access to the internet. And it's important to protect the physical environment to, as I said, to guarantee the high availability of the information system and the systems that are used inside a company. All what I have mentioned till now is handled in a company using a set of processes, either processes of management, of use, of administration. That's why in cybersecurity, we need also to protect the technical and the business processes from the illegal action of the unauthorized users and from the unwanted actions of the authorized users. Here we refer to operational security and also to procedural security. The ultimate goal of cybersecurity is not only to protect these elements, this technical element and these IT assets, but to protect the business, to protect the reputation of the company, to prevent the financial loss, and to protect in general the assets belonging to this to the company. And of course, in cybersecurity, especially when we are dealing with connected cars, connected smart cities, smart buildings. So it's about the human safety, not only about data and systems and networks. It's about human data. It's about life and personal data. So the first point that I have mentioned here is about the key elements that we need to protect in cybersecurity. So we need to protect them from cybersecurity threats that can be either accidental or intentional threats, that can be internal in the company or external threats. And of course, we have in cybersecurity, we have human threats and also non-human threats. And the goal, the main goal is to guarantee and to ensure a set of objectives. First, authentication, the first one, confidentiality, integrity, non-repudiation, high availability, and traceability. And later in this presentation, I will give you more details about these objectives and these goals. Here you can see the cybersecurity disciplines in the center of this graph. So you can we have here information and data. That's why the first discipline, it's about data and information information security. And when we say data and information securities, we mean here the right to access to data, the rights to modify, to send and to change data. So this is data information security. So all techniques, technical and non-technical solutions that can be used inside the company to protect data and information. You can see operating systems and machines, and here we talk about and we refer to computer security. And for software application and services, we refer to secure software engineering or secure programming or secure coding. As I said before, machines and systems are interconnected. That's why we need to protect the network itself. and we need to protect the perimeter of this network by using firewalls, by using intrusion detection systems, by using VPN connection if we want to connect these distant sites, if we want also to let the employees to work remotely or to administrate the network remotely, so we need to use VPN. So all this, it is included in network security. And we have physical security, as I said before, data systems, machines, and network equipments are hosted in data centers. And when we talk about data centers, it means we need to ensure physical protection of the hosting environment. Regarding the end users, we need to set in place processes and procedures, and we need also to secure these processes and procedures. And in this context, we are talking about operational security. So in this slide, you can see the cybersecurity disciplines and the perimeters of each discipline. Now, the next concept is about cybersecurity threats. As I said before, we have several categories of threats. We have internal, external, we have accidental and intentional threat, human and non-human threats. So a cybersecurity threat is a potential danger that could exploit one of several vulnerabilities inside the system to compromise security, potentially causing physical or virtual harm to any IT asset inside the company. So this is the definition of cybersecurity threat. And as example here, and we have natural disasters, loss of essential services, like for example, electrical power failure, because without electricity, we cannot have available systems and available services and applications. So we need to guarantee the high availability of the electrical power. And non-operational telecom access is also a threat for companies who are doing e-business, who are doing for e-banking. So it's essential. It's an essential services access to the internet. Cooling problem also, the cooling problem in the cooling systems is considered also as essential services in data centers, and the loss of one of these essential services may cause a lot of damage to the systems and to the business in general. And the third element is about system malfunctioning or technical failure. An accidental failure also can cause a problem inside the information systems and sign any of the used services inside the company. So here we have equipment failure, software failure or software bugs, system bugs, or system an overloaded system also can, if it's overloaded, it will be unavailable for the users. That's why, for example, here we need to set in place load balancing systems and load balancers in order to guarantee the high availability of the online systems. And at the end, I have mentioned here the human threats, because most of the time when we talk about cybersecurity, we think first about hacking, about attacks, but it's not only about hacking and attacks and the human threats. It's also about natural disasters, loss of essential services. It's about sudden problems in hardware and software solutions. And of course, there is the risk of hacking, spying, abuse of rights for the user that they have the full access for the company's application. We can also face the problem of error in use, and we need to also secure our system from this kind of error that can be made by the end users inside the company. The next concept is vulnerability, cybersecurity vulnerability. So cybersecurity vulnerability is a security weakness in a system or in an IT asset that could allow an attacker to compromise the integrity of the system or the availability, the confidentiality of data, or just compromising the data it processes. And security vulnerability here, we have four types or four types of vulnerability. The first one, the vulnerability which is related to the design of the system. We call this design mistake or forgotten scenarios that can be exploited later by an attacker. So if during the design phase of the system we forgot some scenarios, so it's possible to face the problem of being attacked by using this forgotten scenario. The second one, fault at implementation level introduced by coders. So it's possible to have a well-designed system, but when we code, we need to be sure that all best practice in coding and programming are well respected. The third one, the problem introduced at the hosting phase or deployment phase, due generally to obsolete packages, old operating systems not updated, or security patches not applied. And the first type of vulnerability is about mishandling and misconfiguration or any weaknesses introduced later by the end user or by the administrator during the operational phase. Here, so we need to we need to memorize that vulnerability is a weakness inside the system, and it can be due to a design mistake, due to a forgotten scenario. That's why today we talk a lot about security by design, because we need to think about security since the design phase of a system, of a solutions, of a network. Or vulnerability could be also fault at application level, or a problem during the hosting phase, or a problem of misconfiguration made by the end user or made by the administrator, like for example setting weak passwords to access to administration interface. So this is a vulnerability introduced during the use of the tool or the use of the system. So as example of vulnerability here, we have default credentials or weak or hard-coded credentials inside your source code. Creel text protocols, if we send data without encryption, so this is considered as a vulnerability. Or difficulty to make an update to the system, or unnecessary ports are network ports are open. So these are considered as vulnerabilities inside a system, a network, or software, or any IT asset inside the company. Now, cybersecurity risk. So vulnerability plus threats, it gives risk, cybersecurity risk. It means that when we need to reduce the risk, we need to detect the vulnerability, and we need to remediate to the vulnerability, and also we need to manage the threats, and we need to reduce the attack vector or the surface of attacks in order to prevent the threat to enter inside the system. So in cybersecurity, we need to reduce the risk, to an acceptable level, since it's impossible to eliminate all vulnerabilities and to prevent all threats. So the myth of zero risk doesn't exist. So it's impossible to say that there is no vulnerability, that there is no risk of threats. So so our goal in cybersecurity is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Then managing the cybersecurity risk means two things: identifying and correcting vulnerabilities. That's why we need to do and we need to perform security audits periodically inside the company, since systems and networks and software solutions evolve over the time, and that's why we need to audit them periodically in order to detect as early as possible the security vulnerabilities. And also we need to identify and we need to limitate and reduce the impact of the cybersecurity threats. And here we talk about cybersecurity threat management. The next concept is about vector, cybersecurity vector or attack vector and attack surface. An attack vector is an entry point for cyber threats. It's generally a channel or a pathway, either direct or side channel, used by a threat or used by attackers to exploit vulnerability and to gain unauthorized access to a system or to a network or to data. So this is the definition of an attack vector. Now the set of all attack vectors, it's called attack surface. So it's the sum of the different accessible attack vectors or weak points to be used, that can be used by an intruder to access to the illegally to the system or to inject malwares. So attack surfaces can be divided into three categories. The first one is physical attack surface. Second category is about network attack surface, and the third one is about software attack surface. And in general, what we need to do is to reduce the attack surface as much as possible to prevent the threats to penetrate inside the system or to make the intrusion inside the system a hard task. Now, cyber attack. Cyber security attack or security attacks are action taken to harm a system or to disrupt normal operations by exploiting vulnerabilities using virus techniques and tools. We have a classification of attacks. We have physical attacks, especially here when we are near the system. So here, physical attacks generally need the proximity with the system. Network attacks, when the system is accessible via a network, via a public network or via a local network. So we call this network attacks. And software attacks when we have access to the software, when we have access to the web interface. So software attacks generally when we have access to the available APIs. So the intruder or the attackers can analyze the weaknesses inside the application to detect the vulnerabilities and to try and later to exploit them to be able to enter the system or to damage the system or to steal the data from the system. We have two kinds of attackers, internal and external attackers. Also, we have individual attacks or organized groups. And also, of course, as you may know, we have intelligence agencies that can also make large scale attacks or targeted attacks to some persons or some companies or some government entities. We have three types of insider attacks. First one, malicious, deliberately steals information or doing sabotage to the system. We have also exploited, maybe deceived by external parties into providing data or passwords, and we have unintentional attacks that may accidentally delete or modify critical information, and this can be done by the employees and users that they have the full access to the system or to the software application inside the company. And of course, also we have two types of attacks, active and passive attacks, and later I will explain. Active attacks are attempts to alter the system resources or affect their operation, so it may compromise authenticity, integrity, and availability. And we have also passive attacks, and passive attacks attempts to make use of information from the system but does not affect the system resources, so it may compromise confidentiality. And we have here, as you can see, the normal communication between point A and B, and information is sent via the network from A to B. So if the purpose of the attack is to interrupt, here the attack target the availability of the network or the availability of the system or the availability of the data, we call this interruption. We have also modification. So the purpose of the attacker is to intercept, modify, and re-inject the data modified. So we call this attack modification, and this attack targets the integrity of the communication or the integrity of data. And we have fabrication. It means here IP spoofing, identity spoofing, in order to send data. If it's send data, false data, so to spoof the identity of the sender, and to send information to the sender. And here the attack targets the authentication and the authenticity of the communication. And the last one is interception. The purpose of the attack here is to intercept the traffic, and this is the only passive attack. Cybercriminality or cybercrime is defined as a crime in which a machine or a system is the object of the crime or the target of the crime. And here we are talking about hacking systems, company systems, software piracy, cyber vandalism. So these are examples of a machine or a system object of cybercrime. Or a cybercrime is when a machine or a system is used as a tool or as a weapon to commit an offense, like cyber terrorism, cyber defamation, cyber harassment, and so on. Millions of cyber crimes. We have millions in the world, millions every day, millions in our system or the attack surface. These are the communication channels used to communicate with the system. Then we have vulnerabilities inside the systems or inside the network. And in the company, we set in place cybersecurity barriers and solutions in order to prevent the attacks and to prevent the misuse of the system and the misuse of data. It's possible to be victim of attacks and victim of the threats. And here we talk about technical incident, either accidental incident or attack. And of course, a technical incident, in most of the time, it leads to a business impact. So an external threat or an internal threat enter to the system through an attack vector, and then the threat exploits a system vulnerability to bypass the security controls, the security barriers, causing a cyber incident, a technical incident, on an IT resources. And of course, the technical incidents has most of the time a business impact. A business impact can be loss of financial loss, can be also bad reputation for the bank or for the company. So we have here a lot of impact, financial and non-financial impact due to cyber incidents and due to cyber attacks. Now, what we need to do as cybersecurity experts, first of all, we need to do what we call now threat intelligence and threat huntings. And here the goal is to stop attacks during the exploration phase, to detect as early as possible the abnormal behavior in the network, in the system, and to set also honeypots system to try to attract the victims, attract malwares to the honeypot systems. And this is the first measures, or the first category of measures that we need to do in order to protect the system. We call this proactive cybersecurity. Then it's about reducing also the attack surface by either by disabling unused applications and network ports, or by making time and IP limitation when we open the access for teleworking and for remote working. So we need to reduce the attack surface as much as possible. So this is the second role in cybersecurity. So we need to reduce the attack surface as much as possible. Third, in the third category, it's about doing and performing a periodic security audits and pen testing operations, internal audit and external also audit, in order to detect the vulnerabilities and to remediate to the vulnerabilities. That's why it's important, in order to, especially because the information system evolves over the time. And when we talk about computers, applications, services, systems, they evolve over the time. That's why we need to control them periodically in order to detect the vulnerabilities and to correct and to remediate the vulnerability as early as possible. And of course, we need to continuously set up and update the security controls. Inside the network, we need firewalls to filter the traffic. We need intrusion detection systems, IDS system, either host-based intrusion detection systems or network-based intrusion detection systems. We need also CM solution, system information and event management solutions. We need load balancing when we have online application to be accessible to hundreds of users online. So we need load balancing. We need also redundancy. It's important to avoid what we call now SPOF weaknesses, a single point of failure inside the network. So to avoid the SPOF failure, we need to make redundant systems. We need antivirus, anti-spam, and many security solutions inside the cache. So we need to set up the needed cybersecurity solutions, and we need to continuously update them. Not only set up, we need to continuously update them and update the security policy. And in case of incident, what is needed to be done is early detection. So we need here early detection, and we need to send the security alerts. So we need here solutions of monitoring in order to early detect the incident. And after the incident, we need emergency response in order to first minimize the damage and to isolate the problem. To avoid that the problem is how to say, to avoid the damage caused by the malware, and to avoid that the malware be copied from the one machine to another. That's why we need to isolate the zones, the infected zone or the affected machine, in order to isolate the problem. And then we need to think about recovery and restoration of course, from clean backups. So that's why we need among the security solutions, we need backup solutions. That's why backup solutions are important when we need to do recovery and restoration. So because recovery and restoration need to be done from clean backups. And at the end, we need to do troubleshooting, digital investigation, and we need to understand what's happening, and to try to learn lesson, and to try then to come back and improve these measures in order to avoid this kind of incident and this kind of attacks in the future. And also in order to, in case of cybercriminality, it's important to do a digital investigation to identify the responsibility and to sanction, and for to know who is responsible of this incident or of this attack. If we make categories, so the first one, it's called anticipation or proactive security. 2, 3, and 4, the attack surface, minimizing the attack surface, security audits, and doing periodically pen testing missions and security audits, and setting in place cybersecurity solutions. We call this prevention measures that are needed to secure the information system. The fifth one, it's about detection. We need to set in place monitoring solutions in order to early detect the problem. Then after detection, we need reaction and emergency response. And the goal, as I said, of the emergency response is to maintain the system in life, to minimize the damage and to isolate the problem. After that, we need restoration. We need what we call now business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan. And at the end, we need to do investigation to, as I said, to learn lessons from what happened, and to be able to improve the measures in order to avoid this kind of cyber incident in the future, and in order also to incriminate, if it's cybercrime, to incriminate this kind of cyber attacks. Now, the last part of my presentation, I have dedicated this part, this section, to cybersecurity objectives. As I said in the beginning, we have 6 objectives. The first one is authentication. It means being sure of the identity of the entity, either human or machine, with which we are communicating, with which we are exchanging data. And of course, for authentication, we can use login passwords. We can use two-factor authentication using OTP, one-time passwords, or using smart cards, or using crypto tokens. So there is multiple ways that can be used to implement strong authentication. Second, it's about confidentiality. Confidentiality means protecting data from illegal access and from disclosure to unauthorized parties. And here for the confidentiality, mainly we use encryption, and we can use also data anonymization. So we have several techniques that can be used to protect the privacy and the confidentiality of data. The third one is about integrity. Integrity here means guaranteeing that data has not been altered since it was created, transmitted, and stored. And integrity, it's important in online communication. It's important when we need to monitor operating systems. We need to control the integrity of the operating systems permanently. So it's important to monitor the integrity of the communication and the integrity of data and the integrity of the operating systems. Next one, the next goal is non-repudiation. Non-repudiation here means preventing a corresponding entity from denying its involvement in an electronic transaction. And for non-repudiation, here mainly we use proofs. We use digital proofs, because for non-repudiation we need the proof of data, proof of time, proof of date, proof of the identity. We have a proof of the content of the transaction. That's why here we use generally we use time stamping, we use digital signature, and we use the electronic proofs. It means that here the electronic proofs are important to guarantee the non-repudiation of the online, especially when we are doing online transaction. The fifth goal in cybersecurity is high availability of data systems and the machines. It means that the system needs to be accessible 24/7 or just up and demand by an authorized entity. And for high availability here, we have several solutions. I have mentioned before redundancy. We need to have redundant system. If you have a critical system, we need redundancy. We need also load balancing. In case of natural threats, we need the distant data centers. So we need to have a main data center and a second backup, to a second and backup data center. So in case of disasters, we can switch to the second data center, which is generally located in a different city. And at the end, traceability is one of the main objectives in cybersecurity, and traceability means the ability to trace and identify at all stages and events that led to a particular point in a system or a process. And traceability, of course, in traceability, we need to have the enough information inside file logs, for two reasons. So we need traceability for the intrusion detection, either host-based or network-based intrusion detection. So we need enough traceability to be able to detect as early as possible the intrusions. And also we need traceability for investigation and for troubleshooting in case of incidents and in case of cyber crimes and cyber attacks. We need to analyze the traces. We need to analyze the log files in order to collect the proofs and to understand what happens. So these are the main cybersecurity objectives and cybersecurity goals. Let's start by the first one. The first one is authentication. And here it's recommended, in general, it's recommended to set in place what we call now multi-factor authentication system. And in general, we have 5 factors. We have the first one is the something the entity know, the user know. Generally, it's through password, PIN code, secret response. So something that only the users know. And at the moment of the authentication, we ask for this information. If it's exact, if it's correct, we let him access to the system. If not, so he is not allowed to access. So this is what we call something the entity know. It's a knowledge factor. The second one is the possession factor, something the entity has, like smart card, like access badge, OTP token, like a SIM card. We can also have virtual objects, virtual factors, like, for example, when you receive a link in your messaging in your mailbox, you need to access to your mailbox to click on the link. So this is something you possess, something you have, and you need to prove that you have access to this email to prove that you are the right person. So this is called something the entity has, either physical or virtual. The fourth type of factor is the biometric factor, and here we have 2 types. Something the entity is, like fingerprint, and something the entity can do, like for example the handwriting signature, right, like voice recognition, face recognition, and we call this behavioral factor, or biometric factor. And of course, most of the time at the moment of authentication, we check the location of the user. That's why where the entity is at the moment of the authentication is considered also as a location factor. We check IP address, or we check the geographic location at the moment of the authentication. So in order to set in place a strong authentication, we need to combine all these factors. We can implement simple authentication for non-critical application, but for critical application, we need to set in place strong authentication. And authentication is considered strong if it's based on two distinct factors or more. Next, the next goal in cybersecurity is confidentiality or privacy. So confidentiality is the property whereby information is not disclosed to unauthorized parties. And here our goal is to guarantee the privacy and the confidentiality of data when we use data, and when in motion, when we send data or receive data. And also we need to ensure the confidentiality at rest when we store and when we archive even data for years. We need to be sure that only the authorized persons and the authorized entities can access to data, either stored temporarily or permanently for years. As techniques to ensure confidentiality, so as techniques we use mainly encryption. And here we have 3 types of encryption. So we have symmetric encryption, asymmetric encryption, and hybrid encryption. And in general, all protocols, cybersecurity protocols, are based on hybrid encryption, which is a combination of symmetric and asymmetric encryptions. And here for data encryption, we mainly use crypto algorithms. And here we need to follow the best practice in order to know what we have to choose as algorithms, as key sizes, in order to well implement the data encryption. We can also use data anonymization, which is information sanitization, whose intent is privacy protection. It consists of removing the personal identifiable information from data sets so that the people whom the data describe remain anonymous. And also for the case of small data information like passwords, we can store the password hashed. So and hashed, and we can also add salt to the password in order to make the password uncrackable. So the use of the one-way function and the use of hashing is also a way to guarantee the confidentiality of the information like data. like like the passwords, when we store passwords. So we don't store passwords encrypted, but we store passwords hashed, and we add to this hash, we add a salt to make the password uncrackable. Next, integrity. As I said before, integrity means guaranteeing that data has not been altered since it was created, has not been modified since it was transmitted, since it was sent, and also we need to ensure integrity when we store data. For example, when we archive data today in an archival system, when we come back after years and we retrieve data, we need to be sure that the data was not changed during this period of time. It means we need to guarantee the data when we transmit data, we transfer data, and also when we store data. And also we have here operating system integrity. It means that we need to ensure that the core OS files aren't modified by unauthorized users or unauthorized tools or malwares inside the system, and we call this OS integrity. Data in general can be modified intentionally by attackers, by intruders, or accidentally. Also, of course, it can be by users, or can be changed accidentally. The technique used is main technique used, as I said, is the one-way functions, like using checksums, like using hash functions, in order to be able to check the integrity of data. In general, when we send data, we need to compute the digest of the data, and we send the digest together with the data. At the reception, when we receive the data, we recalculate the digest, and we compare the digest sent with the data with the digest calculated when we receive data. If it matches, it means that the data was not changed since it was created, or since it was sent. And if we need a proof of integrity now, we need to encrypt the digests with a private key. So the digital signature is a combination of two technology. So digital signature is a proof of integrity, and it's a combination of hash functions and asymmetric encryptions. It means that to create a digital signature of a document, we need digital signing keys, and we need to use hash functions, and we need to use a tool to be able to digitally sign the document. So first we need to calculate the digest of the document, and then encrypt this digest with the private key, and the result of this operation, it's called digital signature. And the digital signature is sent together with the document, and it's a proof of identity. The digital signature, it's a proof of integrity, and also it's a proof of non-repudiation, which is the next point. So the non-repudiation, it's a mechanism that can prevent the corresponding entity from denying its involvement in electronic transaction. It can be seen as a subcomponent of authentication also. Non-repudiation of creating a document, of approving, of sending, and also at the reception, we can sign. We can sign a document to prove. We can sign a response to prove that we have received the document or received the information. So we need a non-repudiation at the creation, for the creation, when we approve a document, when we send, and also when we receive. It's important in terms of tracking illegal activity on the internet, as it allows accountability to be enforced. So non-repudiation is important to ensure accountability especially from the online transaction. And as I said before, the only legal mechanism that is a proof of non-repudiation is the digital signature. And in order to be able to digitally sign a document, so we need digital keys, we need digital certificates. And of course, generally digital keys and digital certificates are stored inside a crypto smart card, and keys are generally unique. It means that when a person digitally signs a document, you are sure that he is the only person who created, or who approved, or who sent the document. Since keys are unique, when they are stored inside crypto smart cards, it's impossible to export them. It's impossible to clone smart cards. That's why when someone sees a document using a digital keys inside smart cards, you are sure that he is the only person who can do that. You use smart cards for persons, for users, and you use HSMs, hardware security module, for servers. So it's possible to digitally sign by block or digitally sign several transactions by the server. So, and for servers, we don't use smart cards. We use hardware security modules in order to be able to do remote signature done by the server. High availability. As I said before, high availability means that a system needs to be accessible 24 per 7. We require availability for various scenarios inside the company, and here you can see the list of techniques used to guarantee the high availability, or to guarantee the business continuity, or to guarantee recovery after the disaster. So we need to implement energy efficient protocols and mechanisms inside the company. As I said before, without electricity, we cannot have systems and we cannot have services. That's why having multiple sources of energy, it's important for a company. Implementing denial of service attack and distributed denial of service solutions for DOS and DDoS attack, it's important to avoid to be attacked. It's important to set in place redundant point, especially for the sensitive services. So it's important to have by design to not have single point of failure, to duplicate data and to duplicate systems. It's important to have failover technique, main servers and backup services. So in case of problem, we switch from the attacked or from the system who failed to the system who is alive, who is operational. It's important to have load balancing especially when we have online service. It's important to have load balancer and load balancing in order to avoid or to be able to serve hundreds and thousands of users online. So it's important to have several services and a load balancing solution. It's important, as I said, to have automatic and periodic backups, because in case of disaster and in case of incident, we recover and we restore from clean backups. It means that we need to have backup solutions, and we need to do periodically and to do automatic backups, because in case of an incident, in order to guarantee business continuity as quickly as possible, we need to have clean backups in order to be able to restore as quickly as possible the activity. Of course, we need also distant data centers. For example, for the government entities, they can invest. For bank sector, they can invest to have distant data centers to duplicate everything. But for small companies, for example, they can have backup data centers hosted as housing services with the cloud service providers. So for the big companies, they can invest to have main data centers and backup data centers, and for the small companies, what they have to do is to host their backup platform as a housing in cloud service providers. Traceability here means the ability to trace and identify at all stages and events that led to a particular point in a system or a process. Here, as I said, we need the traceability for intrusion detection systems to detect attacks as early as possible, based on access, event, and error logs. So access logs, event logs, and error logs. We need traceability to be able to track in real time IoT objects, for example. So we need it for tracking, for tracing. We need also traceability to be able to do remote monitoring, of machines, of systems, and also we need traces and traceability for forensics and for digital investigation, because the digital proofs collected when we do investigation are collected from log files, are collected from the systems. That's why when we design the system, we need to think about logging, about putting everything in logs, about having a lot of informations inside logs. All events need to be logged inside the log files. Why? Because in case of incident, everything, in case of incident, in case of cyber crimes, in case of investigation, everything is based on log files. That's why from the beginning, we need to think about traceability. We need to think about archiving and storing any information and any event happening on the network. So this is the last slide. So as I have mentioned at the beginning, during this seminar, so I have basic concepts and definitions that you need to know about cybersecurity. And of course, the seminar. It's open to questions. If you have any questions, so feel free to ask. Of course, questions in relation with these presentations or in general questions. So all your questions are welcome. Thank you again for your attention. I hope it was a clear presentation about cybersecurity, about threats, vulnerabilities, attacks, scenarios, and what we need to do as measures, what we need to do to anticipate, to prevent, to early detect, to react, to maintain the system in life, what we need to do to restore as quickly as possible. We need to restore from clean backups. That's why we need to set in place backup solutions. And at the end, we need to do troubleshooting, investigation, to understand and to learn lessons, and to continuously improve the cybersecurity measures to try to avoid this cyber attacks and this cyber incident to happen in the future. And as goals, we have authentication, confidentiality, integrity, non-repudiation, high availability, and traceability. And as I said in the beginning, in cybersecurity, it's not only about protecting data, softwares, and IT solutions. It's about to protect the business. It's about to protect the reputation. It's about to prevent from financial loss, to prevent from losing clients also. It's about protecting a human when we are dealing with smart cars, smart buildings, smart cities. So it's not only about data and systems, it's about a human life. It's about, and also about personal data. So this is the end of my presentation today, and I am ready if you have any question. And thank you again for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nizar Neji. Thank you for your insights on cybersecurity. And now, please, for dear attendees, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask our guest.